but it's helping people see an authentic Jesus, the same type of Jesus that I know and love.
All of those emotions of feeling insecure, all of the experiences from my past, like all of those heavy things that was keeping me in one place came flooding out of me.
Inevitably, it's not until I'm there, the blood, sweat, and tears, seeing really what they're doing, hearing the real life stories from people, that's when the song comes.
Hello and welcome to Latter-day Profiles. I'm Brian Howard. We're here at the LDS Motion Picture Studio in Provo, Utah. And joining me today is Derral Eves. Derral, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Good to have you. Derral, if you do a Google search of YouTube and marketing, Derral's probably the first one that comes up. He's a master.
There's only one way to spell my name. There's only one of me.
Master of YouTube marketing, really has done a lot of things. Does Vid Summit, which is a great conference for people in video and marketing that goes on down in California. Author and also executive producer of The Chosen, which is a really fascinating thing. I want to get a little bit about your background, though. You said you grew up in a small town. Where are you from, Derral?
So I've lived since I was 12 down in the Hurricane Valley. So I live in the Birkin and went to school in Hurricane High and just love it in that area. My great-great-great-grandfather settled the area.
Oh, wow.
So I'm related to half the town, but now I'm not because everybody's moving in.
Everybody's moving in, taking over your space. Growing up, were you more kind of a techie? Did you get into that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah. I was obsessed with technology. And being, in small town Utah, there wasn't a lot of opportunities, but luckily my parents made it accessible that I could get a computer and certain things that weren't necessarily as accessible in households at the time, and just fell in love with it from day one. So.
Yeah, as reading your bio, you say you made some malware. Is that right?
When I was 8, I got kicked out of school. Yes, that is true. That is true.
A legend down in Hurricane.
Something like that. Oh.
So you did, in college you did PR and marketing, and then you ended up starting your own web hosting business. I was wondering about that. A lot of us are probably too scared to go out and start our own business. Did you do that right out of college? Start your own business?
Yeah. So how the story goes was 1984. I saw a commercial that kind of impacted me. It was the ad that Wrigley Scott made for Apple computers.
Oh, yeah.
And I became obsessed with ads. And I was wondering why certain people talked about certain ads and so on. And I used to survey people. I'd take this little notebook asking what they liked. And then at that time, one of the most disruptive ad campaigns actually occurred, which was Wendy's Where's the Beef?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I just fell in love. It made me laugh. And I was sitting by my VCR ready to hit record when it came up because there was no DVR back then.
Sure.
But I always wanted to make Super Bowl commercials. And so when I went to get my degree in communications and marketing, it was more focusing in on that portion of it. But I didn't want to move to LA or New York or Chicago. I literally love where I live. I love it that my parents, my kids can go up to their grandparents' house and their best friends or their cousins. And so that's more precious to me than doing that. So I forewent that. Went to work for IHC for a little stint, and then I had enough of that culture, and I wanted just to pave my own road. Yeah. So that's when I started, not a web hosting company. It started out as just an internet marketing company, and then we kind of broadened it out to web hosting and all the bells and whistles that go around with that as well.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I read that you got into the newspaper business. How did that come about?
It was just an opportunity. I was looking for residual income. Yeah. So it was just more, hey, advertisers that need websites, they're also advertising in this magazine or this newspaper, and so I got into that as well. So. Have
you always been more the entrepreneurial, not wanting to work for someone else, more kind of doing your own thing?
No, I come from a family. I'm one of 10 kids, and my parents did a great job of rearing me in the sense of saying, hey, no one's going to give you anything in life. If you want something, go earn it. And so for a very young age, they gave us opportunities to earn. But when we went to school, we had to pay for our clothes. And if we wanted to play sports, we had to pay the fees. And it wasn't because my parents didn't have enough money to take care of 10 kids, but it was really important to them to say, hey, we're put on earth to rear these kids, and this is the best way to do it, is just to have them be self-sufficient as quickly as they can and understand how the life really works. And so they did a really good job at that. For me, I wasn't one to go, put up a lemonade stand because I thought that was insane because it just didn't seem very appealing. But I did have a paper route, and we'd expand routes and so on and so forth. And then it led to a lot of little ventures along the way of making money and figuring out how things work. And luckily, I had a wise father and a mentor as a grandfather that helped me see things a little bit differently at a young age.
Well, I was just thinking, YouTube came about in 2005. How did you develop, because you are an excellent YouTube marketer. How do you develop those skills, especially with something that's pretty much a new technology and you're breaking ground all the time?
Curiosity. Like I'm very curious of how things work, and I'm curious how it operates. And how I discovered YouTube was on Craigslist, because I was expanding my business and I needed a desk, and so I was going for some free desk that you could get on Craigslist at the time. And there was this ad, hey, go to this new website and you could get this new iPod. It's like an iPod Nano, and this is October of 2005, and I went there, and that's where. There's only a couple times in my career that things kind of pause and slow way down, and it's when I hit that website. And I at that time, for a lot of people that's probably watching, they might remember that when you played videos online, that it would take quite a bit of time before it would actually play. It'd have to buffer through and stuff like that. But when I went to there, I hit play and it played. And I was like, oh, this is so amazing. And I saw, oh, you could embed these on websites. And the first thing that went through my mind is, I could upsell every one of my clients that I had a website for and actually put video on their website, and I could charge them, and I can do it. And so my passion with video was being met, and it made it more attainable. I didn't have to be in a big city. I could still be in small town Utah and actually produce video, which was really, really interesting.
Well, that's what's really cool about it, is because, you've become kind of household name in the social marketing industry. And how did that come about? Because obviously you're here, you're in Southern Utah, you're starting it out using YouTube. Tell me about that pathway.
Well, I think it's that curiosity factor of how things work. So I was really always early on trying to figure out the Google algorithm, getting my websites to rank higher. And then when I went onto YouTube, it was more trying to figure that one out as well. And it wasn't until I got to the point where I really feel that I came in line with what God wanted me to do on this earth, which was find people that are content creators that are very special, that God gave them certain gifts, and then take my gifts that God's given me and amplify it and build an audience around them. And we could talk that a little bit later about The Chosen and certain other projects. Definitely. But the first one was I was introduced to a piano store owner that needed help on YouTube, and he was trying to sell these grand pianos online. And when I saw his ads, I was blown away. They were just music videos, and they had tens of thousands of views, and started early on. And I saw that store transition into selling out, theaters all around the world, which is the Piano Guys. And that led to a passion of, this is very interesting, because I'm very curious about people. I'm very curious about content. And then it hit me one day. It wasn't that I wanted to create ads on the Super Bowl. What I wanted to do is create content that people would talk about the next day, and then I become obsessed with that. And I remember right after that, ran into the creators of Studio C. They're like, oh, we want to go on YouTube. I'm like, okay, and before you know it, they have 4 billion video views now on that. And, helping really talented people give them a little bit more light into the world. That's what I built the career, and it just kind of gone from one brand to another. One that maybe most of the viewership wouldn't know is the biggest content creator right now. He gets over 1 billion video views a month plus, and his name's Mr. Beast. And we've built so much around him for the last 4 years, and it's just more like understanding the dynamic of what people can do. And the great thing about that is he's helping people in need, and we're documenting the journey, and you're able to see that in content that can be shared. And what I love about it is the content is so good that it's inspiring people to be a little bit more generous, and I think the world needs that a little bit more today.
Yeah. Give me an idea of your day-to-day, because you're heavily involved in YouTube, things with algorithms, video production. So what's, I don't know if you have a typical day. What would be a typical day for you working with people that you work with?
So I wake up really early, sometimes 3:50, maybe 4 o'clock, somewhere around there. I like to start my day out by working on me. And the first thing is communing with God and really focusing in on just being centered for the day. It's really, really important for me. So daily devotional is key. Part of that is understanding we're all put on earth for a reason. And I'm very ambitious in the sense of leaving the world in a better place than when it started, and really making a difference. And you'll see I'm very cause-driven on anything that I do. And so it's just real focusing in on my goals that I'm looking to do. And I only project out goals for 3 years, and then I just kind of reverse engineer. My 3-year goals are my 2-year goals, and 2-year goals are 1-year goals, and so on and so forth, all the way down. But the actionable things, I just focus in on that, and then it's like, do not disturb me until 10 o'clock. And I'll leave, and I'm probably the most productive in that time. And then after 10, it's basically just meetings, throughout the day. And so over the last couple of years, I've been trying to transition out of things and put more responsibility on other people and designate to other projects. Like the only project that I want to work on is The Chosen. I don't want to do anything else. But it's still, there's other people that I'm trying to take care of that help me build several businesses, and I'm just trying to get it into a position where I don't have to do much. But I pretty much have gone down to most companies that I own, maybe 5 hours a week that I'm doing that, and the rest is on The Chosen.
He's able to put time in other places. I do want to talk to you about The Chosen, but I also want to talk to you about, I was really impressed. As you go to your website, on Derral, you just check it out. You've got a great bio. It tells all about you. But really the top part is all about you and your family.
It's all I care about, yeah.
Tell me about that. How do you, as far as working time with your family, time to spend doing things, how do you work that out with your family?
It's complicated when I make it complicated. But the simplicity is time is important. And so I don't have hobbies. My hobbies is what my kids want to do. And when I travel, I always travel with a child or my wife. I have an amazing wife that early on we had a lot of conversations, how our roles would define as a couple. And she's amazing. And we have a daughter and 4 boys, and they're just amazing. And for us, it's more putting attention where they need the attention, and where their interests are at is usually where I align with that. So right now I have a boy that's totally into basketball, and we're going to a lot of basketball games. But then too, basketball practice. And then for me, it's something that my parents did for me, but looking at ways to give him more interest. So like I hired him a personal coach. Like that was something that was really important for me. If he really wants to be good, then he needs to put in the time, energy, and effort for it. And so I try to find ways. I have another son that loves computer programming, and it's just like, hey, let's go meet the guy of Epic Games, the president of Epic Games, or the guy that made Fortnite. I just want them to be inspired by amazing people. And so, when I go on my trips, I'm able to give them access to experience it, but I always take enough time that it's just time with Dad, and then home is just literally spending time. I do play a lot of video games with my kids, and I get creamed a lot. I really do.
Because I quit that a long time ago. It's too embarrassing, and they didn't want to play.
Don't be embarrassed. It's about them making fun of you. That's the whole point of it.
They get plenty of opportunity to do that. Well, let's talk about The Chosen, because that's really cool. I remember when it first came out, and it was a kind of a social media viral thing is how I first heard about it. I think that's how most people heard about it. And so I watched the almost first season on YouTube. And then what was your connection? How did you find out about it and get so involved with it?
So I put a conference on every year for YouTubers. It's called Vid Summit. And every year, we like to showcase data and how to improve your business and really look at this opportunity. And the previous year, Jeffrey Harmon, who's the key principal at the Harmon Brothers, and he was actually doing a startup called VidAngel at the time, was the keynote speaker to one of the sessions there. But him and I both did a keynote because we were both the executive producers for the Squatty Potty Pooping Unicorn ad.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the most viral video ad of all time.
That was amazing.
And people are still talking about it, which is good. So goal accomplished.
There you go.
And so he reaches out and says, hey, I can't come to Vid Summit this year. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because I usually like to have my keynotes come back and experience it, as an attendee. And then I get this random, text, is my ticket still good? I'm like, of course it is. And then he flew in from Provo to LA, and he's like, Derral, you got to see this video. I'm like, couldn't you just email me the video? We can watch it next week. I'm trying to put on a conference. And he was so insistent. I'm like, I don't have time. It's the busiest time of all this high demand of keeping, an event going. And I went to walk away, and I just stopped, and I'm like, oh man, he flew all this way just for this. That's all he did, because when he makes up his mind, he's just laser focused on getting it. And I says, okay. So we went and found a room. We were watching this video on a Chromebook that was no bigger than that. I mean, it was not the biggest screen. And it was a short film that this gentleman made for his church about the nativity, but it was done differently. It was done from the perspective of the shepherd. And I've seen a lot of content in my life, and what I really particularly enjoy is dialogue or very character-heavy content. And I noticed, it was very low budget. I could see that, but the heart was so over the top. And there's a moment where the shepherd just wants to know about the Messiah, and he's trying to learn about the Messiah. He goes into the synagogue and was literally kicked out, because he was unclean to be in the synagogue, and because he's like the lowliest of the low, and he was bleeding all over the place. And he went out, and someone, kind of interrupted him and said, hey, where's the well? Because my bride is, thirsty. And that was Joseph and Mary. And he was telling where the well was, in the town. But then he stopped and did something so symbolic, which was gave them his water. And here he is, giving the water to Joseph and Mary, just about before Mary is about to give birth to someone that can bring the more eternal water, right? And how symbolic that was. And it hit me. And I turned to Jeffrey. I got a knock on the door, emergent to see what's happening. And I turned to him and says, I don't care what it is. If I need to hold the light, I want to be a part of this project. He says, fine, I want you to meet the content creator, in Provo next week. And so the next week I came up and I met with the creator of that piece of content, Dallas Jenkins. And that was kind of one of those moments that everything kind of slowed back down in my life. And I realized he could be an influencer, and we could build an audience online, and we could get crowdfunded and make this a TV show. And so right then and there, Dallas and I became partners. We had zero money in the bank, zero social following, but he had a really good vision, and someone that's very determined. Quite a few people, the Harmon brothers and myself, very determined to make that happen. And that's kind of how it all started. So I was the founding member, along with Dallas, of The Chosen. And, what was a blessing was to see how much people were craving that type of content, and to see 19,000 people help us shatter the all-time crowdfunding record in film and television.
That's amazing.
Without a social following, and, helping them develop an audience along the way that would love and care the show. And that's kind of how it all started. And
done quite well since then. How do you feel about the reaction to it? Because it's on BYU TV right now, but a lot of other places as well are picking up. How do you feel about I don't know what you call it, the success, or the way it's being picked up by so many people?
I think the nature of the project, there was a couple key moments in preparation when we decided, hey, we're going to do this project. We flew to Jerusalem, and we was with our guide, who's a Messianic rabbi. It's a rabbi that believes in Jesus Christ, and he was kind of helping us along the way. And I felt this yearning and so on. And we were in the Sea of Galilee, and there was this first century boat that comes up. I'm like, Rabbi Jason, when do you ever see, first century boat in Galilee? And he says, never. How long have you been coming here? He's like, 20 plus years, and the fishermen threw out the net, just kind of like what they did in first century. And then he stopped and he goes, the Chosen has the opportunity to be the net to gather so many different things. And so that parable, I went back into the parable that Jesus taught, and it hit me that the gathering of Israel, the gathering that needs to happen before the second coming, is to gather everyone to come to Christ. It's not necessarily, it could be going on different directions, but they need to come to Christ, right? And here I'm doing a project with a Baptist, a Messianic Jew, and a member of our church, and it's like, okay, we're here working together for a common cause. And so seeing the success that happens, because that was your original question, goes back to that moment, which is this is a tool to gather, and it's a TV show, but it's helping people see an authentic Jesus, the same type of Jesus that I know and love. And I think the world needs that now, because if there's ever a time in the history of all man, we see a lot of the things that he taught in first century that are more relevant now for our salvation and more needed now than ever before. And that's something that can inspire people to, maybe believe or crack back open the Bible and really, devour his word, or get them going back to worship in different ways.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking there's so much divisiveness about what you talked about as a great example of people from different religions, but a common goal, a common belief that come together. Does it give you hope that, that even with all the divisiveness, that we can come together? And specifically, I think it's even symbolic of coming together around Christ.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
The hope that I have is Jesus, when he came in first century, he was there to disrupt. He was. And what people thought and perceived wasn't necessarily reality. I mean, I can't even imagine how it would be received today. As here he went in the land of their enemies, and he basically declared to their enemy, the Samaritan, that he was the Messiah. And the first place that he started his ministry was in Samaria. And they've been in turmoil for thousands of years. They didn't like each other. And I couldn't even imagine his followers of how they felt, and I think that as we understand that dynamic of what he really taught, what he really stands for, and who he really is, that gives me a lot of hope. Because I can honestly say this, because working on the project and understanding, I think members of our church need to focus a lot more on grace than we do. And I think some other, our brothers and sisters in the evangelical realm needs to focus a little bit more on working. There's a fine balance between that. And I do believe, as we come to know an authentic Jesus, it will help us know how to improve our own situation, starting with us, and then our families, then our community, and ultimately the world.
Derral, I appreciate you coming and talking. I appreciate so much you putting the effort into a project like The Chosen and all the things that you do. And best of luck on everything you're doing. You have so many irons in the fire. But thanks, Derral, for coming and taking some time to chat today.
Thank you.
Thank you.